before we get into the race, I just want to talk about driving through Lake City. We found that the best place for us to camp was actually a place called Castle Lake Campground. And that was past Lake San Cristobal, but it was actually part of the route. So it was really close to one of the aid stations that my wife had to be at. So it was easy for her throughout the day to go back to that if she needed to take care of the dogs or whatever. And then the morning of, it was so dark that we didn't really get to see much there. We took off and went back down to town really quick, and I believe I had just enough time to get to the bathroom before the start line. It started and we went straight into the woods in the dark, and I tried to film. GoPros don't have that good a quality in the low light, so bear with the first 3-4 minutes of this film. I wanted to show you all of the river crossings, but the quality gets better throughout the day.
Both had concerns about was the river crossings. We had heard different rumors about it, and it all depends on the snowpack of the year and how much is actually coming down in the rivers. So every year can be very different. So you never know until you're out there.
Go ahead. Right after the third river crossing, we all got stopped. It was like a traffic jam for about 10 minutes. We were standing still, starting to get cold. Upper lower body was really cold. A couple people were doing little jumping jacks and stuff to stay warm. No one knew why we were delayed so much, but eventually we got up to the next crossing and saw that it was really narrow, really fast volume of water that went through there, and some people were having difficulty with it. Got to the other side, and 50, 100 yards after the river crossing, I noticed that there was a lady who had taken an extra shirt and was wrapping it around a guy's shoulder to hold his arm in place. I didn't know whether it was a shoulder injury or an arm injury, but something had happened to the guy, and so we all kind of knew that that was probably why we were stalled. You got to be super careful. That guy was a little bit smaller in stature, and probably his weight was down in the river a little bit more, and it just caught him. Somehow he got caught underneath a piece of wood, and it hit him in a way where it dislocated his shoulder. And so from that point, he had to make a decision. Do you go back through 3 river crossings and try to get back down to the start line? Or do you continue to go up and over the first pass and over to that first aid station, which is at mile 15? It's hard to get any type of, medic into that area, so you have to be super careful with those river crossings.
Top of the first climb in front of me right there. This is where we came from. Feeling pretty good so far. Hey.
Like a wild man, sleeping like a child. You're so luminous and vibrant. I'm always in bloom for you. Always in bloom. Always in bloom for
All the way down the first climb. It's nice, flowy, single track. Definitely runnable, which is tempting for a lot of people who I think are gonna blow up because they pass me going too fast, going downhill. But keeping a good 10 to 11 minute pace downhill seems to be the ticket. What a beautiful morning. What a beautiful trail. Just when you think you're done with creek crossings. 121.
144.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Good job. Good, man. Good.
Guys, 4 yards that way, the aid station.
Yeah, just looking for my wife.
Cowbell.
There we go. More cowbell.
So at aid station number 1, where I could meet him as a crew, was at mile 15. And that was post all the river crossings. So the first thing was to change his shoes, socks. I think he lubed up his feet one more time at that aid station. He was happy to be past that section and he was looking really good. He was all smiles. I really wanted him to continue fueling, and so far so good. I sent him off with a PBJ that he would be eating as he was walking away. And yeah, it was a pretty quick turnaround at the aid station and he just looked great.
Last bite of snack just went in. Tried to finish a sandwich before I started the next climb. So far the belly's doing good. I should probably be running here because this is the last flat section for a long time. Let's do this. Alright, just passing the ghost town down there. We're at 22 miles. And a little less than 7,000 vert. So 5,000 climb left. Almost halfway on miles.
The top of the second climb puts you at a kind of a ridge line that you follow for almost 10 miles long, and it's above 10,000 feet. If you are having any stomach difficulties or any type of altitude sickness, this section can wear you down a lot. Luckily, we had good weather that day. There wasn't any lightning or anything, but that's something we had to look out for in that type of above tree line situation. And I would say, if you want to make up any time during the race, you got to do a little bit of jogging at that altitude. If you're just going to walk through that section, you're gonna get to the end and go, I know I could have done better, because that's what I did. I mean, I think I could cut off maybe an hour from my time if I just took advantage of certain situations a little bit more. Like do a 9 or 10 minute mile up at that altitude instead of a 12-minute mile, and it's amazing how much time that cuts off in the long run.
Just getting to the second to last aid station. Good thing, because I ran out of water about a mile ago. So, pretty good timing. Take a 2 or 3 minute break and head back out. We see those people going around the hill that way is where we go next. So, first aid station.
Between the last 2 aid stations, I don't exactly know what I did wrong, but my stomach really started affecting me. I've been told that this distance is usually when, your stomach will go south on you, and it did. So more training on that is definitely needed, but I just started getting into a calorie deficit and probably wasn't drinking as much as I should have. And my mind was in just a negative state at that time, so I didn't film at all. It was a nice little section, mostly downhill, a little bit steeper when you got down towards the end, towards the last aid station. But it was more about stomach issues than anything else. My legs were still feeling great. I just forgot to film. So, yeah, note to self.
Go Yoti! Oh! Hey Yoti! Here!
So the last aid station where I got to see him was at mile 40, and I remember him coming down that hill looking more drained than last time I saw him, and that's to expect when you're 40 miles in. However, he did say that he had a hard time keeping up with fueling, and I could definitely tell. He was not as keen on eating when he got into the aid station. I forced him to bring more gels and a banana, I believe. And he was still in great spirits, and he was still very determined to get this thing done. But this was what I was fearing, was that he was not going to fuel properly, and I was worried that he was going to bonk. Obviously, this is something that we don't voice. We just have that in the back of our heads, and we hope that it won't happen. So I just forced him to bring stuff with him. If he would get a chance to eat, then great. And off he went.
The last 10-mile section is basically through a hillside on private property, and we've been told to be pretty courteous about, or mindful about videoing on private property. So I did just 2 clips during that section to show you how beautiful it was. Did pretty decent on that last climb, definitely hard. After 10,000 feet in your legs, you really feel it, but you know the finish line is almost there, so it's just one more downhill and you got it. Running into town, I realized I had a little bit of juice left in my legs that I didn't expect, so the last 2 miles were actually my fastest out of the whole entire race. And that's where it makes me feel like, maybe I played it too conservative today. Should have gone a little bit harder, and next time I will. We'll see.
For Josh.
My favorite part of this trip was, of course, the finish line, to see Yoti cross that finish line. It was raining at that point. He was exhausted. He had accomplished the biggest goal and the most amount of mileage and elevation gain throughout a race in his life ever before. So it was a big victory for both of us. I was super psyched and really proud. We also get to see Lake City in a different way than we ever had before. We spent 3 days there camping for the whole thing, and there's some really cute little places and a restaurant where we could grab vegan food and smoothies and stuff like that to keep him fueled properly. And Lake City just grew on me. It's a beautiful, beautiful little town, and surrounding areas are just gorgeous. So beautiful memories from this whole trip and endeavor. I'm super psyched to have been there and done that.
So 13 hours and 6 minutes. Probably could have been a little bit faster, but I really had a great time. I pushed it to the point where I knew I could get to the finish line, and next time maybe I go a little harder and test it. But being at that altitude for that long, if you're from sea level, you gotta be careful up here. But luckily, I live in the mountains and was able to train really well ahead of time. The race itself is amazing. The river crossings, a little bit scary. And the community, the aid stations, the prize ceremony the day afterwards, it all really ties in the community so well. Everybody seems like they get along, and even though we come from different parts of the country, we all have this let's help each other get through this type of mentality, and it brings you back to the roots of what it was probably like in the first 15-20 years of this trail racing thing getting big. Now that it's all big, we're getting crazy races, and this has stayed small, pristine. It's amazing. And I thank all of the people who put it together for keeping it that way. let's hope we can keep it that way for many more years.